Good morning, everyone. I see that there's 12 of you who've joined so far. Thank you for joining us. We're just going to wait 2 more minutes. There's quite a few more people who need to join, but I'll update you in 2 minutes and then we'll get started. Okay, I think we're about ready to kick off. If everyone can hear me, can you just give me some thumbs up, just react on screen? Awesome. Awesome. Well, good morning. Thank you everyone for joining us this morning. We're really excited to kick off what is our first um, biotech commercialization series. Thanks for everyone who's signed up so far. Yeah, we're really excited to kick this off with you. We've got a good response so far, so we really are hoping that this is going to grow into something special this year. Um, so I'm going to lead us this morning and set the scene a little bit before we jump into our second session, which will be I'll be joined by two founders sharing their story from research to startup. So I'll get to some housekeeping rules in a second, but just to introduce myself, I am Hannah, Managing Director here at the One Bio Innovation Center. And together with my colleagues, Rodrigue, our community manager, who's in the background of this call, he's controlling things behind the scenes, and Aaron, our general manager. We run the Innovation Center. If you haven't met us yet, we always have the doors open. You're welcome to come by for an introduction and tour at any time. So this is session one of the Biotech Commercialization series, our very first webinar. And before I hand over to the founders, like I said, I'm going to do some scene setting, who we are, why we built this, where the current kind of biotech landscape is right now in South Africa, and then how you can make the most of this series. We've emphasized it multiple times. This really is not a course or a program. We want you to make the most of this as much as you are willing to. It really is to just throw you into a community of like-minded scientists, researchers, and people eager to find out what's possible for biotech in South Africa. So cool, let's dive in with some rules. So this is a 2-hour session, but we will have a break in between. I'm going to lead us with a bit of an intro and some background, and then we'll be joined in the second half with our two founders, Diego Castillo and Sarah Carroll, who'll be sharing their story, as I said, from kind of research and academia into the startup world. The sessions are recorded. We can't see any of your faces on screen, so no worries about that. But sessions are recorded and they'll be sent to you directly afterwards, so you can review or share with others that might find these sessions relevant. And later they'll be posted on our website where you can review them as well. Questions are welcomed because there are a lot of you on the call. We can't have direct everyone kind of putting their mic on. So please direct your questions into the chat. We can answer them live as they come through, and feel free to ask anything you want. Keep it casual, ask questions directly and very informally. No questions are the wrong kind of questions, so please be engaged. Cool, let's kick it off. So this will go until about 10:50, and then I'll let you all off for a bit of a break, and we'll go into the next session. So here's a quick map for the next 40 minutes. I'll start with where the South African biotech ecosystem is right now, why it's such an exciting time, and why we're really trying to drive this momentum. Then I'll explain why we built the series, the thinking behind this format. I'll introduce One Bio properly. I know a lot of you probably know of us by now. And then I'll walk you through the full calendar, the webinars, the in-person events if you've missed anything, and show you exactly how we want you to plug into the community and how to make the most of this. And then we'll go into the second session with our speakers. So let's start with the landscape, because to know where we're trying to go, it really helps to know how we got here and where we're at right now. To also set the kind of audience scene, most of you who filled in the baseline diagnostic have said that you are either PhD or postdoc students. And with our team being scientists, academically trained scientists ourselves, we know kind of the shoes that you're in right now, not knowing what's beyond academia and potentially wanting to kind of broaden your horizons and see what's out there. So I want to challenge a story that we often tell ourselves. Africa is so often described in terms of what it lacks: less funding, less infrastructure, less of everything. And this is not just in terms of kind of the biotechnology industry, but across the board. We're starting to see it completely differently. It's something that we like to say quite a lot. I'm not sure if any of you know Ross Vermeulen from Flora Biotech, but he has kind of coined the whole term making champagne on a beer budget, and we really love that. So we have unmatched biodiversity, we have real world problems genuinely worth solving in South Africa, and we have a generation already used to building brilliant things with limited resources. So we really don't see this as a gap, it's an advantage. And just to set the kind of energy and the momentum for this series, this is what we want you to bring to it. Constraint sharpens innovation, so we really do see this as our edge. But to keep it realistic, we do have to be honest about some of these constraints, and starting with the money, because it does frame everything. If we look at our GDP expenditure, which is often, I recently went to a Western Cape, what do you call it, kind of idea-a-thon around R&D expenditure in South Africa and where we sit compared to kind of global innovation hubs. So we spend about 0.7% on GDP, of GDP on research and development. And the countries we often compare ourselves when we look into kind of innovation hubs, we look at the average of the innovation economies, which is sitting at about 1.5 to 2%. And if we really want to compare ourselves to the leading hubs, Korea, Israel, and the US, then we see we're far behind. But our national target has been set to reach 1.5% by 2030. And we really have some ground to make up. Obviously, this is not the only metric to kind of show what the local innovation landscape is like right now, but it just sets the scene for what kind of support and backing is behind it. So it's not just how much, it's also who. Only around 40% of our R&D is funded by businesses. So we often see that becoming a struggle with funding. Obviously, leading economies, there's closer expenditure. About 2/3 of their R&D is funded by business. So we really depend on kind of the government and universities to drive innovation. And of this roughly 44 billion rand, we do spend only a slither, about 9%, on biotech and the health sciences, if even. So this is not too much of a gloomy picture. I'm just showing kind of where we've rooted ourselves in the goals and what on the kind of government level that we've been speaking to Western Cape government and some of their targets to paint this picture of where we're going. So how do we get here? This is, of course, not a completely full picture, but to in trying to summarize this whole road, I mean, a lot of this was far before my time even, but in trying to kind of paint a timeline on a road to our starting point today, this didn't really happen overnight, right? It's been a slow, deliberate build over a couple of decades. Back in 2001, we got our first national biotech strategy, and this set up this regional innovation centers, 3 regional innovation centers, I believe. 2008, there was the IPR Act, and this made kind of publicly funded research a little bit kind of different. It changed the ownership of publicly funded research, which really obviously mattered and changed things quite significantly. 2018, our health products regulator, SAPRA, they were reformed, and we have seen some progress in recent years of increased efficiency, moving a little bit faster. We actually recently had them here in person to do a live panel discussion, and a lot of what was said during that session was quite promising. So then all the way in 2021, of course, post-COVID really pushed things towards vaccine manufacturing. WHO chose Cape Town to see this mRNA vaccine manufacturing on the African continent. And kind of brick by brick, this has been going towards setting this 2030 bioeconomy strategy. Like I said, this is a very basic picture. There's a lot more that has come up along this road. I'll show in a second, a lot of this research and a lot of this is obviously driven by our HIV and TB response. So a lot of it is applied clinical and kind of health first by character. So if we zoom in a little bit, where it gets quite exciting, if we zoom in between 2018 looking towards 2030, we really see kind of an upward trajectory and a bit of upward momentum. To toot our own horns, One Bio Venture Studio, so the fund side of One Bio, were actually founded in 2018, really trying to build on this momentum towards driving capital into the biotech industry specifically. As I mentioned, the mRNA hub was landed just after COVID, really looking at local manufacturing increased after COVID, and there was a lot of drive to build infrastructure after that. The bioeconomy strategy was revised in 2023, and this really sharpened like our national agenda towards increased infrastructure and resource towards the biotech industry. And then through this whole period from 2018 onwards, we've seen a slow kind of boom in startups and early venture formation. Obviously, Stellenbosch University has really increased their resource towards this. One Bio Innovation Center ourselves, we were launched in 2024, and this is hopefully drawing more capital. So, of course, there is never enough capital. Everyone's always complaining about funding, which is fair, but we have seen a slow increase in capital available specifically for science-led ventures. So these decades of slow build are now compounding into real momentum, and we're getting really excited. I'm very open to your comments there. So please, if you do have comments, leave them in the chat or ask any questions. Where is all this brilliant science actually happening? Biotech is a very broad industry. There are kind of 4 strong fronts, and like I mentioned, this global first, the World Health Organization mRNA hub that really drove kind of vaccine manufacturing, and that was put in the spotlight. But then we do have, beyond the kind of vaccine manufacturing, obviously there's a strong focus on infectious diseases. HIV, TB, and malaria really drive that research, with UCT and WITS leading the world, actually. Genomics is becoming bigger. H3 Africa, based at UCT, holds the largest African genomic data set ever assembled. And 94% of global genome studies skew to European data. So this gap is kind of a huge opportunity that we're really seeing trending right now. Then there's, of course, the biodiversity that I mentioned. We have our incredible Cape plant life and agri-biotech, and we're already kind of into the genetically modified crops at commercial scale. So it is quite broad. I know a lot of you on the call looking at the data from the baseline survey go across the board in these different industries. We're really trying to make this series as relevant as possible to all of them. And like we said, we remain open to suggestions. If you don't see your specific industry of interest covered, more than welcome to just raise a flag, and we'll look into bringing in some more, whether it's agri-tech, genomics specific, infectious diseases specific work. Cool. So here's the kind of honest picture. This leads us to our starting point, right? We really are trying to keep this energetic, as I mentioned, and painting a positive picture of where we are at right now. So everyone knows South Africa is genuinely world-class research. We say this time and time again. We have an extraordinary depth of scientific talent that often has nowhere to go, which is precisely what's driving our mission behind OneBio. And we've historically kind of seen this by the lack, this kind of gap in the bridge between translating research into commercial potential. And that's where a lot of stakeholders in this are trying to change. So the pipeline from this kind of lab bench to market has been thin. That's what we're trying to change. And we really do see a new generation of young science founders in our onboarding for this series. Everyone was kind of echoing the same sentiment, right? Young scientists are really hungry to do exciting things on local ground, to stay here and not have to look abroad for exciting opportunities, but to really build out something special in South Africa. So this new generation of founders, more funding and more infrastructure than we've had before. Yes, there's a long way to go, but there really is some exciting emerging resources for everyone to make use of. So we think this is the right time to kick it off. An ecosystem really is taking shape. Again, this is not an exhaustive list. There's many, many more of these names I could have put up, but to kind of paint the picture of what we're trying to hold at our center is bringing on board institutions, funders, and entrepreneur support organizations, as well as all of the founders and startups that are building right now. This list can go on and on. You'll hear from a lot of these people during the series, and we'll send you some additional resources where you can check out kind of what's emerging locally and who to keep your eye on. You mentioned the lack of funding. How does a country go about securing more funding? I'm a scientist, so the financial elements are new to me. Would they have to source external investors or? So the funding question, I mean, that'll be our whole theme of August's webinars, where you'll hear from both institutional funding bodies, so universities, as well as the University Technology Fund. And then you also hear from the VC side of things. But we work quite closely with, obviously, as a nonprofit, the OneBio Innovation Center is funded by government. So we're funded by the Technology Innovation Agency, TIA, who gets their funding from the DSTI. And obviously they work very hard to get Treasury to continue increasing their budget towards biotech, bioinnovation. So within the health sciences most often, but spread it across the board. So I think a lot of it is us building an ecosystem that is directly informing governments and trying to show demand for an increased budget to support, whether it be infrastructure, whether it be programs, training towards this industry. So I think a lot of the work goes both ways. In terms of the country securing more funding for this, I think as this industry proves to be kind of beneficial to both creating jobs and increasing the kind of bioeconomy, I think then the incentive to increase the budget will continue growing. But this is a very, very layered topic. I hope I gave you a bit of an overview there. If you do have more questions, I really encourage you to stick around until August, where we dive into the funding side of it. Can you give me a thumbs up if that was all right, or if you want to ask something more on that? Awesome. Cool. So as I mentioned, this list can go on and on, but that's kind of the world we're in right now. I hope I did it justice, kind of summarizing it. There's a lot I can say about that. I hope at some of the in-person events I can get into more of a conversation about the whole South African history of tending towards this bioeconomy strategy. Sorry, I need another question. Are any of the entities tracking spending on science-related projects and startups accounting for the drastic rise in inflation over the last 6 years? I'm curious whether amount committed to these types of endeavors has changed materially, or whether the cost of consumables, energy, human resources, etc., have simply risen. So I'm gonna not do this question justice if I try and answer it right now. So, Stephen, thanks for the question. I'm gonna leave it to everyone else to ponder this. And if you have a comment on Stephen's question, please leave it in the chat. Otherwise, I'm going to do my best to get back to it if we have time at the end, if that's all right. Cool. But if you guys want to answer each other's questions and have a conversation in the chat, that's also welcome. So go ahead. Otherwise, I'll get back to these if I need a little bit more time at the end. So let me tell you why we built this program. I know we've been through this, so I won't spend too much time on it, but we really kept noticing the same thing. As I said, there's so much talent sitting in these labs, as you all know, but many students and researchers never really get exposed to what's possible beyond this. They aren't shown the commercialization pathway. There's no incentive to really create spin-out companies or no clear path. And there's, I think scientists don't often see this entrepreneurial path as a viable option for someone like them. A lot of our research is kind of incentivized to stay in academia. So even when they are curious, they're not really sure how to take the next step. This is where we really decided that we needed more pipeline from our side to really get talent coming into the industry side of things. And we decided the best way to do this is to engage a little bit earlier. So to really help de-risk this leap a little bit and make it feel more comfortable to take the next step. And we hope that we're going to do a good job. Obviously, there's a lot of other people working in this space that'll contribute to that. But we will try our best. So the format that we're taking is quite deliberate. We hope that it is a little bit different to things you've seen before. As we've said, we really don't want this to be coursework. It's not really theory heavy. This really is exposing you to people who are working in the industry right now, people you can hopefully contact if you do have an idea or if you have legal questions, funding questions, whatever it might be. We're kind of taking this emerging ecosystem, putting it on a platter and asking you to dive in and engage directly. They really are honest sessions with founders and experts. If you are looking for something that's more coursework heavy and you want to dive into something that might be a lot more kind of learning heavy, I guess, we are going to make some suggestions for accelerator programs, entrepreneurial courses along the way. You'll meet some people from Open Startup, hopefully. So there is going to be a bit of a pipeline for you if you do want to continue the learning journey before starting a venture, or if you have some gaps in your knowledge, we are going to suggest a way forward for you. As I mentioned, there are 2 sessions per month, so every month is themed. We'll get to that in a second, and we'll have 2 of these online sessions. From the people who have signed up already, we've noticed that we have people from all over, not just South Africa, but Sub-Saharan Africa. And we are very sad that our in-person events might not be accessible to everyone, but that is why we did this as a hybrid program. We hope that you'll get a lot from the online sessions, and then the in-person sessions will be complementary to that. And everyone in the Western Cape, obviously, those will be accessible to you. But we hope that even for the last event, the big pitch, hopefully we'll be able to get some more people from other provinces or neighboring countries to come through. So if you take one thing from this, what we're really trying to emphasize is that we've noticed so much of this is about community. A lot of people we speak to are trying to do this in silo, and you really don't need a perfect business idea to join in, and you don't even need to want to start a company. If you're just curious, if you want to meet some more people working in the space, meet some exciting, energetic scientists who want to nerd out with you, this is really where we want you to find your way. We hope that you guys connect between yourselves at our in-person events and on our community channels as much as possible to make the most of this. And we're really just trying to expose you to the network that we have. And hopefully that's going to be something for you to start from. Cool. So quickly, who's behind this? I know, as I mentioned, most of you know OneBio, but we're a biotech ecosystem builder essentially here in Cape Town. Under one umbrella, we offer infrastructure, expertise, and capital. But we are divided into 3 separate entities. Sometimes it can be confusing, so I'm just taking a second to re-explain this. From our side, we running this initiative, myself, Erin, and Rodrigue, we will run the Innovation Center. So that's the nonprofit side. We supply world-class labs, specialized equipment, and then this whole community, and really trying to build the pipeline to build this ecosystem. Then we have the Venture Studio, which is a venture builder. They've started off an exciting project this year where they're trying to build biotech companies from a very kind of hands-on approach and directly go out and find the talent and the ideas to make something possible. And then our fund manager, they're closing their second fund now, and they invest in biotech companies at the very early stage, at the seed stage, pre-seed and seed stage. Cool. If you want to check us out, if you want more information, you can check out our website, onebio.africa. I'll ask Rodrigue to pop that link up on the screen, and you can click through to us. Otherwise, you're always welcome to ask us some more questions to our info email, which you'll be getting a lot of our communications through. You can always pop us a question there if you're confused about how OneBio works. Cool. So the year ahead, I know we have sent this to you again, so I hope I'm not repeating too much. Here is the full 2026 calendar. We started this whole initiative quite on a whim and really wanted to get it going this year. So we haven't given you all much time to prepare for all of these sessions. We hope you can come to as many as possible, but that's why we'll be recording them. On the screen is an overview of the themes for each month. So from foundations, team and venture, funding, intellectual property regulations, all the way through to pitching. And these are our confirmed dates. If you haven't already, you can auto-populate your Google Calendar. If you look in the public chat right now, Rodrigue has put up the calendar link. If you click on this link, it'll automatically add it to your Google Calendar, and it'll populate all of the sessions. Under the description of each of those sessions, you'll see a registration link to the Riverside registrations, assuming everyone on here has already registered for them, of course. But if you haven't for all 12 sessions, you can go and pre-register yourself for all 12 sessions, and we'll send you regular reminders so you don't miss anything. Awesome. That link is also now in the chat. Thanks, Rodrigue. Cool. Any questions about this calendar, about the sessions? Awesome. Cool. Where we'll meet. So something that's been quite up in the air is all of our in-person events. As I mentioned, they'll be in and around the Western Cape, between Stellenbosch or Cape Town. So these are our confirmed sessions so far. We have a lot of startup stories. We're bringing in various early stage founders to speak about what they're doing right now, if you could possibly get involved, or just for you to make connections to early stage founders as potential mentors, or chat to them about how they face challenges that you might be facing. These will be in person at OneBio Innovation Center, but there'll also be some recorded and posted online for those who can't attend in person. Then we'll have our networking event, Biotech and Beers. The next one is in July in Stellenbosch. We'll also have one in Cape Town later in the year. Meet your co-founders, a new event that will be that is specifically for this program. The venues to be confirmed, but we have confirmed our first one for the 6th of August, and we'll have one later in the year in November too. So all of this will be sent to your email after this, and it'll also be available on the website very soon. So just keep an eye out for that. Something we also wanted to mention is you are all welcome to plan your own events and let us know about them. If you have an interesting idea of meeting up in person with some of the peers on this series, you are welcome to chat to us, and we can see how we can support you for casual coffee and connect events, walks, hikes, any kind of community activation for everyone to get to know each other a little bit more. Let us know, and we're happy to facilitate that. Someone asked, are all of these in-person events at set times, or are the times TBC? So some of them have set times. Sorry, I haven't put them up on the screen, but we will send them through to you via email after this. Some of the times are still TBC. Most of our startup stories, we do it as a lunchtime session. So they're often at 12 o'clock, 12 to 2 p.m. Our Biotech and Beers is often in the evening, so about 6 p.m. Meet your co-founder is still TBC. So we'll send this all to you via email. And like I said, please let us know if any of this, if you have suggestions for a better format or additional events, anything like that. Cool. So how do you actually get involved? As we said, this is really what this is kind of a platform for you to make the most of it. We have set up a community Slack. We do realize that obviously with everyone with quite a big audience, we can't have everyone chatting during the sessions, but we really want you to be able to connect throughout this whole process. So straight after this session, later today, you will get an email with a Slack link. If for those of you who haven't used Slack, it's kind of like a community messaging platform with different channels. Once you've downloaded it, you'll be able to set up your profile and then you'll see different channels that you can join. What we really want you to do, there's an introductions channel. We really want everyone to introduce themselves, where they are currently at in their studies or research, whatever it might be. Tell us a little bit about your field. And then for everyone else who goes in there, you might see someone doing something similar to you that you want to meet up with and chat to about some of your ideas. We'll have a resources tab where we'll share some resources, and we'll really encourage everyone else, if you have interesting news, events, research, tools that your peers might find really interesting, please post it there. Social is for all of these meetups. If someone wants to do a hike, walk, coffee connect, obviously for those in Cape Town, or if there are a significant amount of people in Joburg or other provinces, and there are some others in the series, you can chat there about doing a meetup as well, so you can have some in-person events. And then suggestions, like I said, this is our first time doing this. We really are doing it and trying to shape it for all of you. We'll have a suggestions tab where throughout the series you can suggest new sessions, topics, people, whatever you want to see during the series, and we'll do our best to incorporate it this year. So please engage and let us know how it's going. Awesome. We've actually made great time. So 3 quick reminders: subscribe to the calendar if you haven't, register on Riverside. And then for those who haven't done the baseline survey, we really, really ask you to do us this favor. Rodrigo will pop the link in the chat right now as well. It really takes about 5 minutes, and this basically helps us report back to the Western Cape government and increases our chance of securing more funding to keep the series going. And it also helps us shape all of the content around the audience to really understand who our audience is. There's the survey. There's the link in the chat now. Cool. Cool. So I've actually made way too good of time here. um, let's talk about today. So as I mentioned, we kind of wanted to take you on this journey from research, academia to the startup world. And when we try to kind of put ourselves in your shoes and having walked the journey ourselves as well, we realized what better way to get inspired than by people who are doing it themselves right now. We have a community of amazing founders who are really in the thick of it, who are trying to build, who've been trying to build for a couple of years. And we have quite a diverse network. So we have founders from all different universities that are either spin-outs or independent startups not associated to the universities. So that's kind of where we wanted to start. We wanted to start with you hearing firsthand from the founders themselves who are making it happen from 2 different industries. And as I mentioned, hopefully at the in-person events, you'll get to meet them and chat a little bit more about their journey. But I think it's really important to see the faces behind these companies as well. And what we've noticed is really just being able to build a community, and for founders to be able to chat to each other and to kind of share the challenges and share what they're going through has been instrumental to their journey, and has really kept the momentum, kept the energy up, and kind of just allowed them to lean on each other and have support when things get a little bit tough, and to also celebrate when things are going great. So cool. So as you would have seen, June is all about founder insights and kind of the commercialization mindset and research-driven, market-driven research. Sorry, we will get to in our second session on 24th of June. But after the break today, we will be chatting to Dr. Diego Castillo, CTO and co-founder of Biomine Health, who are using the human microbiome to transform healthcare, translating over a decade of microbiome science into products that people can use today. He left his postdoc to co-found Biomine, which he'll tell you a little bit more about. And they also had a really interesting experience abroad where they went to Techstars London and got exposed to an international network. Diego has a PhD in genetics, human and environmental microbiome, and I believe I really should know this. He went to University of Pretoria, UP. And then we'll actually have Dr. Sarah Carroll first, CEO and co-founder of Marine Health Solutions, which is a UCT spin-out in the marine space. She was a PhD student turned founder, taking her research on marine species out of the lab into this commercial opportunity. And she is also very well connected into the international market, works a lot in the Nordics as well as in the Netherlands. And she really champions female entrepreneurship and sustainable biotech. So she has a lot of knowledge in the aquaculture space as well. So we're really trying to involve founders across different industries. Cool. That's me actually. Thank you for everyone who's joined. I'm sorry that we've actually rushed through this so quickly. The plan now is to have a bit of a break before our two founders join us. So we're going to have a bit of a longer break. But maybe I can open it up for some questions. Does anyone want to pop any questions? Does anyone want to come on screen and give a comment? Anything like that? If not, we will be back here at 11 to start with our founders. You can just mute yourself and leave yourself on screen. But be tuned in at 11 and Diego and Sarah will be here to join us. Rodrigue says there's a live call-in request available. So on your screen, you should see an option for live call-in, and that'll request you to come on screen and chat to us. Otherwise, pop any questions in the chat or go and take a break, and we'll see you back here at 11. Chris asked if the session is recorded. Yes, the session is recorded. The next session after the break will be recorded as well, and you'll get the link straight after the call. So if you do have to jump off at any point, we do love a live audience, but we do understand that this is in the middle of people's working day. So we will send you the recording as well. Awesome. Cool. So I'm going to open it up for the break. Everyone give a thumbs up if they're going to be returning after the break. Awesome. Great. Cool. So we will see you back here at 11 sharp. Like I said, you can just mute yourself and wait on screen until we're back. I see Stephen asked regarding the baseline survey, if you think you completed yours but got a reminder to fill it in, I might have sent you a reminder without taking you off the list. So what I will do is after this, I will send a reminder to everyone. I'll make sure I send the reminder to everyone who hasn't filled it in. If you have filled it in, you probably have. It was probably just my bad. So if you haven't sent it, I will be sure to just double check and I'll send you another reminder if that's the case. Otherwise, it should be good. Cool. Awesome. Okay, our guests have joined, so we're going to kick things off again. I hope everyone is back. So I'll give a bit of a rundown of how this session is going to go. We have Dr. Diego Castillo and Dr. Sarah Carroll joining us, and we are going to try and kind of have a conversation between the three of us. Like I said, it's unfortunate that there is a big audience, so we can't have everyone on screen asking questions and talking at the same time. But we will answer questions as we go from the chat. So please keep popping your questions in the public chat, and I will put them, Rodrigue will put them on screen as we go along. So thank you, Sarah and Diego, for joining us. The first session, we're going to jump in with Sarah's story, starting Marine Health Solutions as a UCT spin-out. So I gave a bit of an intro about both of you in the previous session. and I've hyped you up significantly. But I'm also going to ask Diego, I know I mentioned it to you, if you have any questions for Sarah as well, or any comments or anything to kind of echo as she's telling her story. It's meant to be kind of conversational. And the reason that I asked you two to join for this session is because you kind of have two similar stories, but from a different angle. So Sarah, Marine Health Solutions, is a UCC spinout. So we're really interested in that perspective, how it went from kind of your research at university straight into a startup and how that is working today, working alongside the university. And then Diego, having left your postdoc and starting kind of an independent startup outside of university, that kind of contrast. But then equally the challenges and kind of the exciting path from research and then deciding to take the leap and start your own thing. So to kick things off, I'm going to actually let you reintroduce yourselves in your own words, starting with Sarah, Diego, and then we're going to kick off with Sarah's story, followed by Diego's. So go ahead, Sarah.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Carroll. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Biomine Health Solutions. We're a biotech spinout, as Hannah mentioned, and we are focusing on developing health and diagnostic solutions for farmed fish. A little bit about my background very quickly. I have a PhD in molecular biology from UCT. And I won't go into too much because we're probably just going to hoy. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah and Diego.
Right. My name is Diego Castillo, and I am the co-founder and CTO of Biomine Health. And I think I will tell you more about it when when it's my turn. Otherwise, I'm also gonna talk too much.
Can you mention, I think I might have butchered this earlier, or just confirm, you have a PhD in genetics, human and environmental microbiology.
No, it's human genetics, but
Human
the
genetics.
specialization, like the degree is human genetics, but my research was basically bioinformatics and microbiology, microbiome. Yeah, but it's
And it was UP,
genetics.
right? University of Pretoria.
Correct.
Awesome. Awesome. Cool. So let's kick it off with Sarah. Like I said, everyone, please, if you have questions along the way for anyone specifically, pop them in the chat. But Sarah, maybe you can run us through kind of the starting point. So to set the scene for you, we're joined mostly by senior students, mostly PhD postdocs and master's students from all different universities in South Africa and also actually surrounding countries. We didn't realize it would reach kind of sub-Saharan Africa region from our followers. Yeah, so I think your perspective maybe from the UCT lens will resonate with a lot of UCT students on the call. But yeah, take us through kind of the early days and really when you decided to take the leap. We want to inspire people to, if they are thinking of it, step outside and take a big risk.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So I've jotted a few things down because I know I'm a bit of a chatty Cathy. So I'll just follow, not as sort of a script, but just so I don't ponder too long on one topic. So just a bit about my background. I grew up in Durban. Always been obsessed with animals. I love the ocean. I would be in the sea every single week. And I think my love for animals at a very young age sort of guided me in my educational path, I suppose. So I studied zoology and microbiology at Rhodes University, where after which I actually left to do a master's and a PhD at UCT in the molecular and biochem department. And that was under the supervision of Vernon Coyne. So I actually entered into a marine biotech lab, which was compared to what I was doing in zoology, it was quite a shift from, the sort of macro animals to now working on a very cellular biochemistry level.
Sorry, Sarah. Sorry to interrupt you. A few people in the chat are saying they can't hear you too well. I'm not sure if your headphones, maybe you can
How
speak
about
into the mic a
now?
bit more. Can we get thumbs up or something? Speak a bit more.
How
Testing.
about now?
Mm.
I wonder
Okay,
what it is.
because it's still very soft.
That's so weird. I don't know what else to change on my side. I'm so sorry.
Um,
Is it better if I just take my headphones off and then just like talk straight into the computer?
can we test it out? Yeah.
Perhaps better? Now? Okay, much better. All right. Now I need to turn the. Now I can't hear you guys very well. Shit.
Oh no.
It's okay. It's okay. Don't worry about it. I'll just like I'll lean in. Okay, cool. Sorry about that. Okay, cool. Okay, rewind. Grew up in Durban, studied zoology at Rhodes, went to UCT for my master's and my PhD, and I had Vernon Coyne as my PhD supervisor. So my work there was focused on understanding the impacts of climate change on farmed aquaculture species. So basically farmed abalone, which in South Africa is the largest export product in aquaculture. Yeah, and the work that I did there utilized proteomics, which I'm sure many of you might know what it is, but for those who don't, it's essentially the study of all proteins in an organism. So proteomics at the time was slowly gaining momentum. We were still obviously using things like 2D gels, and then we went into LCMS. And then, that research really I suppose, unlocked a lot of insights and value into how we can maybe find ways to improve how we farm abalone in the face of changing environmental conditions. So when I finished my PhD, I didn't actually go straight into business. I stayed on as a researcher in the lab. Then COVID happened. My goal that year was to actually go to France for a postdoc. Obviously, that didn't happen. And I know that maybe this is not what an investor wants to hear, but I didn't want to start a company. I've never been sort of like had that affinity for running a business. You also hear a lot of the maybe the horror stories about I suppose the longevity of a startup. But I think for me, my passion and what I really wanted to do with my life was something that needed to be impactful in the natural world. I had a very strong goal in mind as a young girl. So I figured that, at the time when I was doing my research position, we had the university come to us and essentially say, we could potentially fund alongside the UTF your spin out process to actually commercialize some of the research from Vernon's lab. So Vernon at the time was working quite closely with the abalone industry. So there was a lot of applied science and practical application there. So I figured, for me, if it means that I can live out my naive childhood dream of, being an animal advocate in some way, shape or form, even though it is animals that we eat, I figured that I would bite the bullet and tackle being a founder of a startup. Knew nothing about business. And so that year we started that process of spinning out. So that was in 2021, towards the end of 2021. And then, we joined a accelerator program at UCT at the business school, which was honestly quite, like, I would recommend it to anyone who can actually get in. It's called the eTrack Venture program. Perfect for foundational understanding of business and all those kinds of things. So that year was a lot of learning, steep learning curve. Vernon actually started out, so we spun out together and we started the company together. So Vernon actually started out as the CEO. He quickly learned that is not his forte, the sort of people-facing thing. So we swapped roles, and so now I'm the CEO, and Vernon is my CSO. So that was the sort of our journey in that process, and I suppose what really led us to spinning out. The support that UCT provided in those early days was things around basically legal support, setting up the financials sort of thing, setting up also like a strategy, at least for the early days, and what we should be doing when it comes to engaging with the market. And then from there it's progressed. But yeah, let me just use my little notes to sort of guide this conversation.
Sarah, can I ask quick? You mentioned the E-Track program. That's through the UCT Business School, right?
Correct, yeah.
Cool.
I
I'm
don't
gonna
know
put
if
a
it's
link in
still
the
running.
chat.
If it's still
I'm gonna
running.
put a link in the chat that I just found. I'm not sure if it is the right one, but hopefully people can check it out and see. Diego, you have your hand raised. Did you want to jump in?
Oh, you muted.
I just the question I had was about like the actual spin out process because I was not a spin out. So is it like research that you guys had in the research group that you had developed, and then you took that IP, and then you said, okay, now that IP doesn't belong to the university anymore, but it belongs to the company. But did it come from research that you guys were doing already, specifically for your PhD, or maybe just a research group as a general research group?
Yeah, no, good question, and thanks for like reining it in. Yeah, so the work that I did in my PhD, there were a few students before me who also used proteomics in their research, but answering different questions. But what we had first started out was the goal was to develop a health monitoring program for farmed abalone in South Africa using proteomics as that tool. So it is sort of from my research, not exactly in the sense that we use the data from there, but the fact that the data was so rich really sort of showed us the value that proteomics could unlock for industry. And so we wanted to develop this health monitoring program for South African farmed abalone. And we spent 2 years basically engaging with the local market and understanding the needs and the issues that they were having on the farms. We spent 2 years also sampling abalone from two separate farms on either east and west coast. And so that was essentially to build out a baseline of farm level I suppose health status of the abalone. We got to the point of analyzing the data and everything. And what we soon found out quite quickly towards that end was that the industry here in the market maybe wasn't ready for that level of technology at that particular price point. So we had to pivot. So we pivoted to the global farmed fish industry. We were fortunate enough to get into an accelerator program in 2 years later, so 2023 in Norway. This was very much focused on the salmon industry. And so that was where I spent 3 months in like random nowhere island in northern Norway, but it was probably one of the most life-changing experiences for me. I spent 3 months there, and the whole goal with that is to essentially engage with the market. We met farmers, we engaged with feed producers, basically trying to understand what the issues are within the industry, the salmon supply chain, and then how, at least from our perspective, how proteomics could be utilized. So at that point, it was still quite a lot of market research, engagements, etc. And that was also when we started to build traction, as a classic lingo word, traction, which is basically just showing who we are in the industry. So coming from little old South Africa to the global stage in Norway was incredibly daunting. Didn't know anyone from a bar of soap. And so, that process of spinning out with the guys at UCT really sort of shaped our trajectory and where we ended up going. So UCT was quite pivotal in those early days, in getting us going, in supporting us, particularly on the financial side as well. I mean, I think for any early stage startup or spin out, firstly, you don't know what the hell you're doing when it comes to maybe putting together financial projections. I'm not a super maths whiz or financial person, but I had a lot of input from UCT, specifically the RCNI, so Research Contracts and Innovation Office. So that process did take a while, but I think the support that they had at the time for us really did it did support us, but also guide us into the direction that we ended up going in. So we had a lot of meetings with them. Their support managers also sort of worked with us, particularly on the strategy side. So yeah, when it came to pivoting, it was almost like a no-brainer. So everyone behind the cogs and stuff were happy that we decided to do that shift. Also, when you compare abalone production to the sort of global aquaculture species production, it's a tiny little pinprick. So yeah. But
If I
anyway,
get so I mean, zooming into a few things that you mentioned that I think would be really relevant to a lot of people watching, listening, is you said that you didn't really want to start a company yourself, right? I think a lot of people who've gone into science can really support that and not really wanting to run the business side or get into the thick of everything startup and that in that kind of end. Is it, do you think, from my perspective, studying science in South Africa, I had the same sentiment and I didn't really want to start my own company, but do you think that that's very much because there is limited opportunity? So you almost get thrown into the boat. Like, if I want to do this work, if I want to go further with this research, I kind of have to do it myself and it's worth it. So let me just start something myself instead of looking abroad. Kind of what was that like first? Okay, I'm just going to do it. And then going, it's worth me becoming a founder, even though that's not necessarily what I wanted.
yeah, I didn't want to start a company. I love science. I love research. I wanted to just like be in my little tiny hole doing the research, making some kind of difference. But I think, you know, it's great to do research, but you cannot make a change by just publishing in a journal article. Like you're not going to make change, right? And so for me, there was so much value coming out of the research in Vernon's lab that, I knew, we discussed it, that when he was going to be leaving, we didn't know anyone who would be willing to take up that sort of podium and carry on the research in that lab. And it didn't happen anyway. So I felt that, institutions, universities are meant to be these, I suppose, fountains of knowledge where you develop research and you innovate, etc. But then taking that innovation and that research and making it applicable, that's not something university can do. So it just felt so, I would be remiss to see that research that whole lab had been doing just go down the toilet, essentially. So yeah, I think for me, I don't really know about the sort of entrepreneurial opportunities in South Africa as such. I think my motivation was largely around, okay, I want to do something good with this research. I want it to be impactful. And yeah, if it makes money on the way, that would be fantastic. But for me, it's about taking that, that research that you worked so bloody hard on and building something and seeing the impact of that. So yeah, I guess that's what sort of spurred me on. It was never a case of like, oh man, I'm never going to find a job, so I better start something myself. I didn't even think of that. It honestly was just, no, there's so much value here. Don't let it sit at a university. So yeah, that was really what it was.
Can we get a couple thumbs up if people feel the same in their research department right now? No one? I felt exactly the same. There we go. Tons of thumbs up. Sarah, we just have a question that came up in the chats. I'm going to read it to you. So, hi, Sarah, you say that the local market was not ready for your solution at the price point offered. Did this change after your international exposure, or is the local market still reluctant to adopt these scientific solutions?
Very good question. And the short answer is they're slowly adopting it now. Not necessarily the abalone industry, but we have been working with the trout industry, which is very small, but it is growing. So we've worked with a few trout farms and as well as a feed company here, who's like really great to work with. So yeah, I think maybe it was after the fact that we started to validate the actual, I suppose, the concept of what we envision for proteomics in aquaculture with real clients in Europe. And I'm talking bigger clients, huge clients compared to in South Africa. And I think that was maybe sort of like a little nudge and a turning point for the local industry. So we are slowly starting to see a little bit more uptake locally. But we really have been trying to not give back, but we understand the economic circumstance of South Africa versus the global north, right? And so our goal with Marry Health has always been a case of, well, we want to sell to Europe and the Northern Hemisphere, but we want to cross-subsidize costs for the local market. And that is still our goal, and that is what we are doing. So, yeah, I think doing that, I hope it's making some difference for the industry here, because the worst part is to see an aquaculture industry locally not compete on a global stage because they don't have access to these solutions, and that's not what we are about. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm going to ask another question that came up in the chat. If I can follow on from this question, how did you go about assigning a price or value on your product or service, especially in such a niche market? I think that's a very complicated one to get into. Do your best.
Yeah, okay. That's a hard question. It was iteration, honestly. So we did some benchmarking studies looking at what the Northern Hemisphere sort of labs typically charge. Really hard to get some of that information, honestly. And we didn't have like AI to what it is now. We didn't have it then. So it was a lot of digging deep in reports, market research reports, which, by the way, are really expensive to get access to. So yeah, we did a lot of that. I contacted one or two labs just to sort of validate the numbers that I was working with. And from there, we had one sort of setup model, which was it was probably not the best, but we've iterated. We started off with basically come to us and we'll quote you based on the work that you want to do. Obviously, that is kind of a friction point for many companies. It's like they just want the price and that's it. So from there, we actually use that sort of behavioral insight from our potential clients or prospects, and we iterated on the different models that we could have. So at first it was, okay, this is the standard price for this and the standard price for that, and that's it. We realized that quite quickly that was also pigeonholing like people into, or companies into one thing, when everyone or every company's question and what they're wanting to do with it is very, very different. So we then shifted into, after getting our first client, and they've been with us since then, we've been working with them and getting their feedback on things and what they would prefer when it comes to options for different pricing packages and stuff. So from there, we actually then moved into a subscription option for clients. So they can get access to X number of samples that they can use across the year. And then that has different data analysis options for them, depending on what they're actually looking to do. So that's really how we, I suppose, did it. But it was like the blind leading the blind. So yeah, it was a lot of iteration. But at the end of the day, I think that's what the point is of a startup. And the really nice thing is that you think that you've got to put on this like fancy sort of very professional, which obviously you should be professional face. But a lot of these companies that you end up working with as a startup, they do want you to succeed as well. So they're very keen on, giving you the kind of feedback that you need. They understand that you're human and that you are learning. And so I think there's a lot of grace given, which was really like quite refreshing. I mean, you kind of feel like, oh my word, I need to be like this businesswoman. But I mean, yeah, you at the end of the day, you're connecting with people. So yeah.
Awesome. There we go. Thanks so much. So I did realize that half an hour each is really not enough time to really get into the thick of it with both of you. But on the basis of just time and giving Diego some time, I realized this is a good segue into a lot of our startup stories. So if you guys do want to hear more from each founder, we'll hopefully be hosting them for a longer session each, where we can get into more about their specific industries. Something we can also consider at a later stage is having one-on-ones where we go a little bit more into the specific industries that each of our founders work in. Something that I want to maybe circle back to, Sarah, as a last comment from your side. Obviously, kind of being in research, not wanting to start a company. You've mentioned that you were exposed to a few accelerator programs or courses. Kind of that very early stage, if there are people on the call who are researchers who really have that same feeling that they want to see this research go into the real world and make an impact, and they're thinking of taking this leap, is that something you would really suggest? Obviously, with accelerator programs, it is diverse. It depends which one you take and for what specific industry and what market you want to get exposed to. But maybe give a bit of a comment on that. And what I think we can do after this as a resource for everyone watching is we can maybe go and highlight the accelerator programs or the ecosystems internationally that you were exposed to, and send it to all the audience for them to go and check out and see what options are available. But I'll hand it over to you for comment on that, and we'll do one more question and go to Diego.
Yes, this is a short answer. I think it's worth it. I think one thing to be mindful of is that some accelerators will, if you get accepted into it, they may give you a cash injection, but then at the same time, they will take a bit of equity. So that is something you need to make a decision on. There are also accelerators if you just like got an idea and you're sort of exploring that. So there are some accelerators and sort of programs like that for very much early stage ideas, not even an actual product, for you to explore. I don't remember any off the top of my head, but I can send that to Hannah and she can just share it with everyone. So yes, I think it is worth it. I think it's helpful for a scientist to know what they are in for when it comes to not only the research, because I'm pretty sure we got that down pat, given the fact that that's our background. It's more on the, okay, now it's translating that into something that can make a difference. 1, 2, make money, and 3, also make money for your investors. So yeah, I think it is really helpful to get an idea of what you're going to be getting yourself into.
Awesome. And I think a good follow on from that is the last question that I'll have for Sarah is, as a scientist, this kind of goes on from what we were saying. As a scientist, are you comfortable in business? And how did you really build your confidence, especially at the start, going into the business world?
I wouldn't say I'm confident, to be honest. I must admit, I struggle with public speaking, and which, I mean, is weird because as researchers, we should be able to go to conferences and present our research. That I'm not a natural on stage. I don't like it. I don't like being the center of attention. So I wouldn't say that I had a formula for building the confidence other than it's like exposure therapy. So I forced myself into those situations. I hated myself at the time when I was doing those things because it was really uncomfortable for me. And I'm sure with anyone who has anxiety over those like public speaking and stuff, I'm sure you can understand the sort of physical toll it takes on your body. So yeah, I think it was exposure therapy really. I'm still doing exposure therapy. I still hate it. I don't like presenting and stuff like that. But I think what really drives me, and I think that's something that maybe a lot of you can sort of relate to, is that it's the passion inside of like, what are you actually doing this for? It's not a case of, oh man, I've got to perform in a certain way and I've got to not stutter or whatever. Holy Moses, you're going to stutter. I mean, look at me. So yeah, I think it's having the motivation still inside of you, despite the fact that you have the anxiety over these kinds of things. So I wouldn't say I'm confident. I'm definitely working on it. And maybe one day you'll see me on a TEDx stage. But right now I'm okay with sort of like very industry focused things. But yeah, I think that's really what it is. So just keeping your passion always at the back of your mind as to why you're actually doing this.
If I can say, that's actually quite a surprise to me because I have been honored to watch you pitch before, and I think you are definitely hiding your anxiety very well. I think you wear your passion on your sleeve and it definitely shows on stage. So give yourself some credit there. If anyone else does get the opportunity to see Sarah pitch Marry Health, it really is enjoyable. Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, I think I really am getting ideas as we're doing this of wanting to jump more into your specific industry. I think you're definitely championing the kind of marine tech industry in South Africa right now, and having those international connections is going to do wonders for our bioeconomy on this side, blue economy. So keep pushing. Hopefully I'll be able to grab you for another one-on-one session where we can dive into it. And anyone who wants to know a little bit more, you can send over some questions. I will do my best to chat to you, Sarah, of laying out your whole path through the accelerator programs, whatever resources you think might be valuable, and send them over to the audience. A thumbs up or a clap for Sarah. Thank you so much. I will encourage you to continue and join on through Diego's chats. Let's jump into Diego's journey. I'm going to share, Diego, do you want to share your screen or should I share your presentation? Because I know you had some.
I suppose you can share it yourself. I mean, it's just pictures in the background that you can like put them up
We love
every now and then.
we love pictures in the background. Give me a second. It's always great to see young Diego through the years. So
Yeah, very different.
let's just give it 1 second. It's
When I
busy
had no
loading.
hair.
Exactly. The full journey. Cool. Can
Cool.
everyone see that? Can you see it, Diego?
Yeah, I can.
Awesome. Cool. So
Yeah,
let's kick off with Diego's story.
cool. Just put those pictures there because people ask me, "Oh, you're Portuguese or you're Spanish?" I'm actually from Ecuador, which is a tiny country in South America between Colombia and Peru. They're on the left-hand side, on the bottom. And I came to South Africa when I was 19 years old. Thank you for the next one. Thanks. Next, please. There. Cool. I actually landed in Joburg first as a gap year after I finished my trek in Ecuador, and then I did an English course at Wits, and then I was like, "Oh, this country is actually cool." And then I started applying for universities just in case, and then UP, the University of Pretoria, just said, "Come through. You don't need to write any exams or anything," because I had done like a Cambridge equivalent for my school, and then I was like, "That's easy." Then you guys made the choice for me. So then I started my academic life at UP. You can show the next one, I think. So I did a bachelor's in human genetics and human physiology, and then in honors just in genetics. And that's where I met Vaughan, my co-founder. We actually got paired in like the first month lab intro course. And then by chance as well, the advisors, the supervisors that we had for honors shared a lab. So yeah, we bonded over lots of failed experiments and late nights in the lab. And then we became really good friends then. And I really liked biology since always. I was one of those few people when they asked in first year, who here wants to get into medicine or vet? I was one of the few people that didn't put their hands up. So because I liked biology and genetics so much, it was a no-brainer for me to do my master's, where I studied, my research question was about the human microbiome, well, the blood microbiome in Alzheimer's disease patients, which was cool. I was very focused and I wanted to get it done as soon as possible. So after 2 years, I was done. And I loved the research that I did. Which took me into the next step. What do I do my PhD? I mean, I love research, so I must do a PhD, right? And then there were a couple of options. I really liked the microbiome and the techniques, bioinformatics techniques associated with it. So there was this one research group also at UP that had funding for me, which was also important because I was supporting myself by then. Even though it was moving away a little bit from humans, it was still microbiomes. And I had the opportunity to travel, which was great. You can show the next slide, please, Hannah. Thanks. I switched to studying microbiomes in the Southern Ocean, in the Antarctic Ocean, which was amazing because I went to the Southern Ocean and the Antarctic Ocean twice with the SA Gullas, which is a South African icebreaker. And yeah, it was amazing. I learned a lot of techniques, but I knew that I love planetary health, but my thing is human health. The one thing that I would say in the first year of my PhD, because I wasn't as obsessed with the research question that I had as I was for my master's, for my PhD, it was interesting, super interesting and cool, but I wasn't like, I need to answer this research question. That allowed me to step back a little bit and be like, what am I actually doing? I'm doing a PhD because I want to continue in academia, but academia is a very specific calling. It's almost like a vocation. It's like being a teacher, being a doctor, being a nurse. It's such a particular calling, and I don't feel called like that. I don't feel like this is going to be me, where it takes a toll and it's hard because you are overworked and underpaid, go through all like 10 years of studying to get paid peanuts as a postdoc, and then maybe just get a research position where you have to lecture as well, whether you like it or not. So then later get a research position and then maybe associate professor and full professor one day after 20 years, become the general of the army after being, in this career. And I was like, yep, that's not for me. Huge respect for the people that's their calling, but that's not my calling. That was already my first year of my PhD, but I was like, no, I'm already enjoying this and learning so much. I'm just gonna push hard, like I did with my master's, just focus, not waste any time, get it done as soon as possible. So after 3 years, I completed my PhD, and I was happy to move on. But then the question is like, what do I do now? So there were still some papers hanging. So I decided to just do a short postdoc with my professor, my PhD supervisor, Tulani, who actually now is in Stellenbosch. Some of you might know him. He offered me a short postdoc, just to finish up some papers that were hanging while I figured out my next move. And I was like, I don't know what to do. I always liked doing practical things. I always thought just publishing papers is not for me. It's fantastic, but someone has to do that fundamental research. And some profs that I had, I asked them like, why do you do that? And they're like, well, I don't know. For example, the African horse sickness virus that I studied for my honors, the prof was like, well, like the fact that this virus has, I think, 7 or so genes and does so much, like just, it blows my mind. And I was like, but what about the vaccines and applications? She's like, I don't care about that. I just want to figure out what it does, which is fantastic, because then someone who develops vaccines takes on that research, right? And I was like, nah, that's not for me, thank you. And then at that stage, I was chatting with Vaughan, my co-founder. We were always in touch. After doing honors together, he had gone to Korea, and then he did a master's. He was there in psychology, and then he had a vertical farming business, actually. So he had moved away from academia, but he is still very much a nerd, like I am, I guess. Then we had connected. Then you can move to the next slide. Thanks, Anna. And then there was a moment, Hannah asked about the founding moment. I'm glad that we took a picture there. I'm kidding. And that was just, it's a picture where we met that I remember. It was somewhere in Arini, for people that know Joburg. The red clipped something far. I wasn't familiar with Centurion. One is from there. Anyways, we met up, and he was like, I just sold the proof of concept of my business that I had. And I was like, well, I'm wrapping up this paper or so, and I'm looking for the next step where I can apply science, because I know that academia is not for me. And we were both like, yeah, remember when we were in honors and we were trying to use the qPCR machines from the lab to do some internal testing illegally, which we didn't in the end, thankfully. And we're like, whoa, why don't we start a company? Why don't we start a biotech company? It was literally like, as random as that, I guess, but also because we both, wanted to work something together. We are both ideas people. He had the business experience already, since he had a business, and I had more the science experience from doing my master's and my PhD. And then we were like, okay, let's but seriously, are we just saying this, or are we actually doing it? And we're like, okay, let's try, And then for a period of 4 months, maybe we were doing this part-time, or we just, after work, we were meeting up or doing our own research. And then we came up with lots of ideas, and we said, okay, this is one idea, seems cool. Let's start asking people for money, I guess. And then we started pitching this idea, and then that's when we came across One Bio. And then Nick heard us out, and he was like, look, your idea is crap, but I like you guys. So if you come up with something better, just come again. And we're like, cool, challenge accepted, you know. He also gave us a book to read, From Zero to One by Peter Thiel, which I highly recommend, just to open your horizons and to think bigger. That was his thing, think bigger. And then, yeah, we took that as a challenge. We came back after 2 or 3 iterations. One bio actually liked our latest idea, which was using the microbiome to mine for therapeutics, particularly for mild cognitive impairment and Alzheimer's disease. And then they liked our idea. They gave us a grant. Well, they facilitated a grant that CIFA had given them to give to people to basically de-risk investing in companies because they wanted to know, they didn't know us, right? But with our grant, we could start Biomine. And then you can go to the next slide. Thanks, Anna. And we started Biomine Health at the end of 2022. Yeah. And then we, for a year or so, like we had to pay ourselves very shitty salaries and we couldn't buy, well, we're still paying ourselves not great salaries, but it was particularly shitty salaries. And then the money that we got, we couldn't use it for like buying equipment yet. So what we did was we set up a study, a collection study that we would get samples so that we could sequence them later when we raise more money. And that first year was basically setting up the company, doing a lot of research, bioinformatics research from publicly available data, just to already show some traction, while we were setting up our own study and collecting those samples. And then in a very short period of time, with the amazing research with publicly available data, we collected 50 samples from South African super ages that were basically African ancestry people that were very old, 70, 80, 90, and they had no cognitive decline at all. So they were like our super ages or super samples. And then by the end of that year, we basically had convinced the one buyer how serious and how driven we were. And then we started our pre-seed fundraise proper, and then they invested in us properly. And with that money, we could sequence the samples and do very interesting bioinformatics work. By that time, I don't know how I'm doing with time. Yeah, I think I'm okay. By that time, we had done such amazing research. You know, we could have published like a very good big paper or maybe a couple of smaller ones. But then we kind of realized, okay, then what now? The route that we were going in terms of deep tech biotech route is basically you do research, you reach an inflection point where you have de-risked the science that you're doing, right? And then you have achieved certain milestones that allow you to be like, hey, these guys have some very interesting IP, very good research, and then you can start raising your seed, which is the following round, which is a bigger raise. For that, in theory, you don't need to make money yet because you're raising from people that believe in the IP that you're building, right? And then that's when, only then we started realizing, hey, we're building this amazing research, but we haven't thought much about who's going to buy it. Yes, it's for pharma. It's going to be therapeutics, but we hadn't done our homework on that side. We are both scientists, so we very much trained on how to go from left to right. A hypothesis, scientific hypothesis, tested, amazing research. But we're building a business. Even though it's IP based, we still have to think from right to left. If you find the cure for cancer, that doesn't guarantee that you're going to build a successful business. Because who are you going to sell it to? How much is it going to cost? Is it going to be paid by medical insurance? How expensive is it going to be? Is it going to be comparable to the current chemo? Is it going to be worse or better than immunotherapies? You have to think about that side. And that's a massive realization that we had. And by that point, we started thinking a little bit more about the market and the applications of our technology. And that, I suppose, was the beginning of our main pivot, where we thought we are not part of the pharma world. We know very few people in the pharma world. It is very interesting what we're doing and what we have. We had these biosynthetic gene clusters from the gut microbiome that could be used to basically, in the lab, create metabolites that can be used for cognitive decline. But we haven't done anything in the lab. Everything is in silico, and we don't have any interest from any pharma company in it. So that was the big realization of, okay, we have done amazing research, but we haven't thought about it as a company, Yes, we obviously have financial models and we always pitch with numbers, but that means nothing if you haven't spoken to the end consumer, even if it's 10 years down the line. So then at that moment, we said, okay, maybe we should apply for accelerators, incubators, see how we can pivot, And then you can press next. Thanks, Hannah. Then we got accepted after a month and a half of interviews and drilling us and applying to many of those global accelerators and incubators. We got accepted into Techstars London, which is like tech agnostic. So they also took biotech in this specific case. But in general, is a little bit more towards other type of tech. So they're very much about revenue or getting closer to market, even though they also understand deep tech. So just to say that being part of that accelerator first, it opened our horizons because we're part of a bigger ecosystem where we could go to Cambridge and check out what research they're doing, what spin-outs, London also big in biotech. And we spent 3 months there learning about the other side of business, the validating an idea, speaking to people, doing custom discovery calls, even if it's pharma or whoever, you still have to speak to the person that's going to find you or that's going to be the end receiver of whatever you're building. That was an amazing experience. I would say one of the best things that I learned from that is that it doesn't take one shot. Most of the successful people that we met there, they have a successful startup or a business, or they sold it, or they exited, or they were successful after the third, fourth, fifth, sixth time that they tried. So I think that was my biggest learning was like, if this doesn't work out, it's not a failure. We're learning a lot. And the second time is going to be better because now we've learned X and Y and Z. Then we came back from that thinking now, okay, we still want to build Moonshot, a deep biotech rich in IP. We basically, in the meantime, had collected samples from other types of microbiomes, vaginal microbiomes, from a public data set, or from public data sets, not our own samples. Vaginal microbiomes from cancer patients. We basically mined the whole of the NCBR and the ENA for public data. And we had built this microbiome platform, as I call it, but platform is just this data repository that we have analyzed in different ways that allows us to understand certain conditions, certain diseases in different ways, and to use the microbiome for something specific, right? So now I don't know if you have to go next now. I can't remember what I put next. Might be my last slide. Thanks, Hannah. Okay. Oh yeah, that's when we joined the One Bio Innovation Center on the top left, which is where we are based now, to use the labs and the office space. Yeah, I think that's my second last slide. Just to say that now we are still building for a big moonshot, that VCs, venture capital, investors that think of a 10x return want. But at the same time, because our IP doesn't come from 10 years, 20, 30 years of research from our research group, because it's not a spin out, we have to think revenue. We have to make cash now. For us, I'm not saying that is the recipe for us. We have to make cash now because we don't have this massive IP that comes from years and years of research, and because we're not part of that world with the networks that we would need for pharma. Okay. So the latest iteration of pivot that we did for our big moonshot is to use the microbiome to predict responses for immunotherapies for specific cancers. The microbiome, the gut microbiome, and immunotherapies overlap a lot because the immune system, they both interact with the immune system a lot. So we can use the gut microbiome as a proxy to see if immunotherapies are going to work for you or not. And it's like a million rand treatment. So if you know beforehand, it's good, and the current biomarkers are not great. So that is our current moonshot. But in the meantime, we've been building this revenue stream, which is a direct to consumer gut microbiome test that through the research that we had done on our platform, we launched into the market about 9 months ago. And then we're selling now direct to consumer, but now also getting into the practitioners' networks to see if dietitians or functional doctors are happy to recommend this so that we grow. So that's where we are right now. We are making this product even more applicable for doctors because we want to sell it via doctors while we still build this traction for our big moonshot of helping not just oncologists, but also helping clinical trials that are discovering new immunotherapies by giving them a layer of the microbiome, because the microbiome can become a co-founding variable. So if you know about the microbiome of your clinical trial, of your people, then you can explain why. You see variability, basically. I think I have one more slide.
Yes, sorry, I already went to it by accident. This is your last slide.
Oh, cool. No, that was just to say how fun will we do it as well. I mean, we are learning as we go. Every little pivot that we've had, or bigger pivots, or every fundraising round, or getting investment from Techstars and getting into the accelerator, or one bio, or pitching and getting so many no's, so many yeses, it's just building us, I would say the most important thing for me for building Biomine was that first I was cuck scared because I'm a scientist at heart and we didn't have everything figured out. We trained the scientists to know everything before you start the experiment. Like, all the variables are controlled. If I had waited for that moment, we would have never started Biomine. So it's almost like saying, yeah, fake it till you make it in a way. Obviously, you can't say or build on bullshit, but nothing is perfect and it's not going to be perfect. And the only way to test it is to get out there and to raise some money for an idea and see who buys, So I was very scared not to have everything figured out, but we still did it. And actually regret maybe not starting earlier, even when I was doing my PhD or my master's. Even if it had failed, just to learn, because you can do an MBA or whatever you want, but unless you do it, as you guys probably know, unless you do it, you will never really learn unless you get into the lab and do the experiment yourself. You can read the protocol as many times as you want, but you have to do it to know, right? It's the similar in the startup world. I'm glad that we just went for it and we got some cash and we started Biomine. And even if it doesn't work out, very happy to have done it. At C-Rod put our website. That's the website for the immuno trials. And then if you just go to biominehealth.com, that's the website for the direct to consumer gut microbiome test that we have. I would say I was super lucky as well that I started this company with a friend, because that is probably, from what I hear from other people and from in general, the most important thing, because investors are investing. When you're early stage, the idea changes, they're investing in people. And if you have a good relationship with your co-founder, then you just building together and having fun on the way. And there are ups and downs. And obviously we have connected at a different level now because we know each other more. But it's almost like it's not the same, obviously. But it's a relationship, you know. It's like, but it takes hard work, like a romantic relationship, you know. For your romantic relationship, there is tough conversations and there is ups and downs, and you have to be open. You have to communicate. Same with your co-founder and your business partner. You have to have the tough conversations. You have to go through the ups and downs. So doing it with a friend and growing that friendship, I think, has allowed us to be successful. I'm saying successful because, I mean, it's the startup world. You know, we might run out of cash in 6 or 12 months and then close down if we don't raise money or if we don't make enough money. But it's been a success.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Diego. I mean, I had so many ideas as you were chatting, but something I want to highlight, the reason that I asked for you and Sarah to be kind of alongside each other on this call is just to highlight some of the differences, but then at the same time, the kind of
Yeah.
similar trajectory that it goes along. So one, obviously the difference in your co-founders, sometimes it can be, I want to start a business with one of my best friends or someone I studied with and really um, see eye to eye on with our kind of passions. And then in Sarah's case, with Vernon, who was your PI and someone who's done amazing research for a really long time. And then the difference in kind of going and leaving university and just saying, okay, let's start a company. We have a passion for this research. Let's make something of it. And then Sarah being backed by that whole kind of huge department of research and wanting to take that forward and not let that just sit. It's like two differences that I think a lot of people in the audience will be in one of those boats, and I think it's nice to kind of highlight that you can start it from either side, right? And then I also want to just mention some of the things that you chatted about, the importance of your co-founder, refining your idea, and how often you'll have to pivot or rethink or go back to the drawing board, as well as some of the kind of early stage funding opportunities. These are all topics that we will be speaking about during the series. So I'm glad that they came up in this initial conversation as well. But I see that there's some questions. We only have 2 minutes. If people do need to start dropping off, you're welcome to. I'm just going to do these two questions. Thank you for the insightful talk, Sarah and Diego. How did you go about establishing market traction and generating demand in the early stages? What strategies were most effective in demonstrating value and accelerating adoption for your end user or funders? Anyone want to raise their hand to go first on that one?
Go for it, Sarah.
Me.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. Sure. But so I think in the early days, the value of piloting, so finding good partners to pilot with, you will take a hit. You will take a hit financially for that, but the data you get out of that is what you use as your marketing collateral. I also think, the traction side of things and creating that demand. Proteomics isn't at least for non-researchers, it's not a very well-known analytical tool. And I think, you got to leverage education as well. So I think in the early days, we also spent quite a bit of time putting together material for educational purposes on LinkedIn. And honestly, we were obviously coming out of COVID at that point. So I think LinkedIn became a good friend. So it was really helpful to, at that point, to build I suppose, a following. And one thing I should just say is that your personal brand is not separate to your company. So whatever you present on your LinkedIn profile, it always is about your company, your role in the company, and what you guys are doing. So so piloting, you will take a hit. And then, of course, education, especially when it's something, at least for others, very novel. And at least in aquaculture, I would say, proteomics isn't a widely known or utilized analytical tool. So we're still building that. That's what I would say.
Awesome. Thanks, Sarah. I do know that it is 12 o'clock. If Sarah or Diego, if you have other commitments, feel free to jump off. But then there was another one from Jashan, I think. I love this question because it's exactly something that informed how we run the series. But it looks like both of you had the support of great co-founders for your startups. How much of a role does this play versus someone trying to go at it alone? Would you still have gone the entrepreneurial route without your co-founder's influence? I'm going to hand it over to Diego, but I'm also going to make a comment from my side. It's something we've seen time and time again, chatting to our different founders at the Innovation Center. And it's exactly why we started the new in-person event called Meet Your Co-Founder, which we'll host two of during the series. And we'll try and think of a way of maybe how we can do this online for those who aren't physically in the Western Cape. Yeah, we think it's hugely important. And I'll hand it over to Diego to say why.
Yeah, I think I would have, in any case, done something entrepreneurial, but I don't even know if it would have been like biotech. I think I've always wanted to do something, but maybe later down the line, I would have maybe just gone into industry, made some bucks to be able to start a business. But as I said, the most important aspect for me was to start and do Biomine with my co-founder Vaughan, because we were friends before, and that friendship matured even more. And without that relationship, I wouldn't have started Biomine my own. With the wrong person, even worse than alone. But even alone, man, it's so hard. I can't even think. You need that person that goes through it with you and the tough moments, and they understand really because they're literally going, um, yeah, they're doing it with you, you know. I mean, you can do it alone, you know. You can't, I mean, and kudos to those people. It's like you can't have a single mom and a fully functional kid and grown up, you know, and it's amazing. There are so many cases, but it's easier to do it as a couple, you know, just to again give that analogy. Um, I think, yeah, that's crucial. That's pivotal. Number one thing for me, in my opinion. Right, co-founder.
So in our July sessions, it's all about team and refining your idea. But we're going to speak to some other founders around the importance of their team and how they went about building this and how it affected the direction of their startup as well. So I'm going to open it to one more question if anyone has a question in the chat. But I am going to kind of leave it with Sarah and Diego are very close in our network, in our ecosystem. Thank you guys for always contributing your insights and what you're learning along the way. It's really been awesome to see you guys grow and to be watching it from our side. And if those who can and kind of attend our in-person events, Sarah and Diego will hopefully be around at some of them. I
For
encourage you
sure.
to chat to them a little bit more about their journey.
And if you're not around
Um,
in Cape Town, also send a message on LinkedIn, you know, or and then we start chatting from there if you have any questions.
Awesome.
Agreed.
Maybe that's my kind of question to you guys. I mean, how big is the ecosystem importance to you? I know now that it's emerging and everyone's trying to kind of build more of a community around it, just sharing the resources and challenges instead of trying to find them and go at it alone, being able to just call up another founder working in the space and pick their brain. I mean, is that something that day to day has improved your journey in a startup?
Yeah, yes. And one of the cool things about being at least like in an accelerator program, you meet other founders. You meet other founders from different backgrounds, different parts of the world. And yeah, you learn a lot. You learn a lot about what their hiccups have been, what their lessons have been from those. And everyone actually at the end of the day, we're all wanting to achieve the same thing. And I think the nice thing about the startup world, albeit very hard, I think it's been very nice to essentially see that everyone wants to help each other. So even if you're not even talking to other founders, if you're talking to industry people, people want to help. So just ask questions all the time. It's never a stupid question. So yeah, I think it's been helpful.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you guys so much for joining. Can we get some thumbs up if everyone enjoyed hearing their stories? We still have quite a few people watching. So thank you all for tuning in for our first webinar. We really do hope that the format and the way that we're trying to structure this as just honest conversations and connecting everyone to each other is going to be useful. Like I said, we're going to send a follow-up email with all the links to our Slack community channel, to the rest of our webinars and our in-person events. And if anyone has more questions for Diego or Sarah, you're welcome to contact us at info. I don't even know it. We'll send it in the email to you guys. But you're welcome to email us with some follow-on questions. And hopefully Sarah and Diego will have some follow-up conversations that we can hopefully get more into each of your industries. Thank you all. We'll see you at the next one on the 24th of June. Cheers.